Welcome to AI for Gen X, a video podcast where we discover new topics about AI. My name is Marisa Wilson, and I'd like to take you along on my training journey. Each week, we'll discover new topics. As Gen X, we've done this before, we've learned new technologies, and I'm excited to learn this next one with you. So grab the dog, head outside, and in 10-20 minutes, you'll be a little closer to understanding AI. Today is Wednesday, April 15th, tax day, but we're not going to talk about tax. Don't worry about it. You should have already had those turned in. Today's topic is about AI and memory. It's a little bit of a confusing thing, and I wanted to recount a story that I had with a friend of mine who was confused about how his AI was remembering. Mind you, with anything in AI, the one thing that I want you to always take away is it is an evolutionary thing. I think maybe in our generation, we tend to like things to be rough draft, final copy, enter, and that's it. But that just is not the way AI is going to work anymore, right? It's just always going to be evolutionary. So just always think what is true today may not be true tomorrow. If you're questioning how is memory used a month from now, it may be different than what I'm recounting here. So just keep that in mind. So let's start. If you don't know my process, what I tend to do is I post something on Substack, and then I'll create this video podcast, ideally short enough that you can grab a leash, get the dog outside, or just go for a walk. Important part here is to touch grass. This article was inspired to me by my friend Darren. He had pinged me and said, "Hey, I have a paid subscriptions to Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude, and even Grok, and they all seem to remember things differently. For example, I'm trying to learn Spanish, and go Darren. He was using ChatGPT before, so now he's trying to move into Claude, but he misses how ChatGPT really seemed to remember. So he had a list of vocabulary words that he had in Spanish, and it would just, if he popped back in and said, "Hey, let's look at a new vocabulary word today. Tell me about it." ChatGPT would know the words that he was working on and, get to work with them. Whereas Claude and Gemini just were like, "Excuse me, what vocabulary words?" Even though he would say, "Remember my vocabulary words," they were just like, "Nah, I don't know what you're talking about." So why is this happening? What is helpful is, I think, visualizing how this memory situation is happening within the AI. What I like to think of it as is a desk. You have a desk where when you have your chat sessions, all those files get poured onto your desk, and that's context window. The second is persistent memory, and I think of these as post-it notes that you're putting on your monitor. For things to remember, like for Darren, he's learning Spanish, maybe that he lives in Texas and that, he wants to keep these lessons brief, that type of thing. And then the third could be what is starting to be newer in the models, a chat history recall. And that could be kind of seen as a file cabinet where it's not just remembering pieces of it, it has a whole context in its memory. And each of these models handle this a little bit differently. So let's first talk about the context window, because this was probably the most important one. In a context window, what is happening is you start your chatbot and you start your little session. Let's say you start chatting away, and every time you send a message and a reply, a new sheet of paper is being dropped off onto that desk. And the AI is not remembering those sheets. So the second time in the same chat session, you ask another question, it has to read what was on that desk and then create another file, and now puts that paper onto that desk. If you can imagine, after back and forth sessions, your desk starts getting full, right? And sometimes when that desk is pretty full, things start slipping off of the desk. Now, to give you context, and don't hold me to this because I've told you things are changing so fast that the minute I say this, in fact, I wrote this article, I think a couple of weeks ago, it's already different. So whatever I wrote 2 weeks, it's already different. But just as an example, the context window of ChatGPT If you're using the standard thinking model, it's about 932,000 tokens, versus if you're using the thinking model, it goes down to about 256,000 tokens. For Claude, that's about 200,000 tokens that it uses. And for Gemini, it's a power horse. It takes on about 1 million tokens. And token, you can think of it as roughly 3/4 of a word. So you can imagine Gemini's desk, it's got a lot more paper. He's got a giant desk. And Claude, maybe just a little bit smaller. Things that you need to consider with this are things called context rot and a lost in the middle. And this happens to me. Like if somebody is giving me a long presentation, or my youngest is telling me about his latest Minecraft build, yeah, I'm engaged at first, and then if it's really long, I start zoning out, and then at the end, I kind of come back to and go, yes, okay, I understand. Same thing happens with AIs. They've studied it and found that, yes, if you're putting a lot of information, sometimes the stuff in the middle gets a little bit fuzzy, gets a little bit lost. It maybe not as accurate, but yeah, what you're experiencing is real. Sometimes it will forget the first part of your conversation or some middle part of your conversation and act like nothing happened. It's just that file is underneath a piece of paper and it's not seeing it. It's not a tremendous problem, but just know that it does happen. So we talked context window. Next, what we wanted to cover is persistent memory, what I like to think of as the Post-it notes on your monitor. How did ChatGPT remember Darren's vocabulary list? ChatGPT happens to be pretty good at this, at keeping it in its persistent memory. It's the AI literally reading its own notes before the desk gets cluttered. So it pulls out, maybe if Darren had said, remember this list, it knew to pull out this and stick it in this persistent memory. And then the final is what I like to think of as the filing cabinet. This is a newer thing for some of these AI models. They can now search through your past chats and retrieve specific content from old conversations to make the response a little bit more relevant. It's not a Post-it note, so it's not a persistent memory. It's not going to have the entire vocabulary list in its memory. It's going to go to the file cabinet and be like, oh, here's the chat conversation about the vocabulary, and here's the list. Not all platforms offer this yet, and you can implement it in various ways. There's various ways also to set up how you communicate with the AI. We'll talk about projects later on, but all of this is a way to contain the memory and have the most effective discourse with your AI. So now you know your desk, your Post-it note, and your filing cabinet. And what gets interesting is how ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini handle these. They're very different, and it's a little bit reflective of their company philosophies. So let's start with ChatGPT. It's the eager assistant. It has the most aggressive memory system of the three. It runs 2 layers at once. That's why a lot of people like it, and that's why a lot of people think, well, it already has all this information. I don't want to have to start fresh because it already knows me so well. With ChatGPT, you have the 2 layers. You have what you expect, the Post-it notes that it remembers, but there is a second layer that most people don't know about. And a ChatGPT builds a running internal profile of you based on your conversations. It's watching your patterns, your preferences, the way you phrase things, and it uses that profile to shape its responses, even when you haven't explicitly told it to remember. Here's the catch, though. You can see your saved memories, but you cannot see the full internal profile. You don't know what it's keeping about you. That is changing a little bit. I think they're becoming a little bit more transparent as people want more access to their editing their own memories and having an understanding of what these AIs know about us. But for Darren's case, and especially at the time that he was using it, the way that ChatGPT handled memory worked perfectly for what he needed. Claude is more the careful one. It takes a different approach to memory. It stores what it learns about you as a plain text file. And you can literally go in right now in the settings, just ask it even like, where's my settings? And you can edit those memories. It also has projects. You can create dedicated workspace with specific documents, instructions, and context preloaded in so that when you're working on a project, it knows everything it needs to know about that project, which I tend to really like because I think my mind works that way. When I work on a project, I envision it being in a file folder with all the relevant information, and I don't want all the other data to be infiltrated in. It just helps me think clearly. Claude also can search past conversation. That's the filing cabinet. Where it falls short, it's that it's most conservative about auto-saving things in its memory. So when Darren told Claude, remember this vocabulary list, it did not. It was not. It was in a conversation. It was not in a project. So in that chat session, that information was gone. And then Gemini, it's a little bit of a wild card. Google's approach is fundamentally different from the other two. Gemini does have persistent memory. It can save facts about you, but Gemini's advantage is that it lives inside the Google ecosystem. So if you've given it permission, Gemini can pull context from your Gmail, from your Google Calendar, from your Google Docs, your slides, etc., your photos even. It doesn't just know what you've told it in chat. It knows what you emailed your accountant last Thursday. It can know a lot about you. And it can be a very powerful way of working with an AI when it has so much context to go off of. That's one of the reasons it has the largest desk of any of the three. It's got, roughly 1 to 2 million tokens. And again, a token is about 3/4 of a word. So it can work with a huge span of content in one chat session. Okay. I like to give these guys kind of a privacy report card. So if I was to judge them from 1 to 5, I give Claude a 4.5. Why? Why do I do that? Well, its default privacy is set to not train on your conversations. You can very easily manipulate what it remembers about you. If you do delete a chat session, it keeps it, but will delete it within 30 days. I would give Claude a safe room. It's probably good at handling sensitive data that it probably won't have somebody looking at it. The second, ChatGPT, I give it a 3 out of 5. Why? Because it is more data hungry. It wants to train from your chats. The memory that it stores, some of it you can edit, and they are getting better about that. But for a while there, you couldn't manipulate its persistent memory, which felt a little bit intrusive. They're kind of like the gossipy assistant. And then Gemini, I give it a 2 out of 5. Why? Because it is deep within your ecosystem. It can access everything. It knows everything about you. And a human reviewer could review actual conversations that you've been having it. So I would think of it as like a public park, very, very powerful. But just if you're looking to keep things private, know that maybe Gemini is not your go-to tool. And that's why I also recommend having all three and using all three for different things. It's very helpful. I tend to run out of token use almost immediately with Claude. It really drives me crazy, but I don't necessarily want to spend more than $20 a month right now. So I then switch over to Gemini and can finish off my work and do so very effectively. Now, we're talking about training and how that works. So one thing to keep in mind, if your company has an enterprise, your data it's walled off. It will not be trained on. That is private to you. So enterprise accounts, if your company provides it, you're fine to use. Don't listen to me what I've said about them training. It's your own thing. And that's the best way for companies to go ahead and get enterprise accounts and then start training their people on how to use it. I think it gets confusing. I hear so much where, especially if they didn't get the right tool or they didn't do the right training or they haven't set up the tool as effectively for everybody in the company to use, then you have these side projects and a good chunk of people are off on their own private AIs getting things done because they aren't able to get what they need to get done within the company's AI. And then this whole notion of walled off kind of doesn't matter. On the personal ones, the ones that you're doing for free or the $20 a month, just assume that the AI is learning from you. Data is treated as fuel for the next model by default. The reason these things are very powerful is that remember, they had scraped all of the internet. It continues to need more data to be more powerful. And getting that data is actually hard. There's companies out there right now. My husband has looked at some startups where the whole purpose of the company is to provide data for these companies, whether it's, visual data, maybe space data, like how to configure a room, etc. Data is their fuel. Pro tip, opt out is a job. So you must manually flip the switch in settings. Turning off training does not turn off memory. So don't worry about if you're turning off the training, you're not going to affect your memory, but it is up to you. If you're using a personal account, you're the teacher unless you tell the AI to stop taking notes, okay? So you're responsible for managing what it is learning from you, what it is using to train on. I mean, truthfully, I don't care if it's training on the stuff I do. There's nothing private with what I'm doing, so I'm fine with that. One thing I want to cover is usage limits. I hear some people think that once, for example, Claude says, oh, you've run out of your context window, try again later. That is not that it ran out of its memory. It is that it's just closed. Like you had a certain amount of session availability for the $20 a month, and that session is now closed, and now you have to wait a little bit. This happens to me all the time. It's just driving me crazy. I just need to be more efficient with it, which I will learn how to do, and we'll report that back. So here are 6 steps to control your AI memory. Okay. Very first one, audit what it knows. Literally go in. You can either do that by opening up the settings in the different models that you use, looking to see where it is storing memory, or simply saying, what do you know about me in a prompt session? Have the AI tell you what it knows about you. Check ChatGPT personalization, Claude memory, and Gemini saved info. Number 2, chats and memories. Remember this, deleting a conversation clears the desk, but extracted facts remain. You must manually remove memory from items separately. I had that situation where at one point I was looking at a job, and Gemini remembered this, and it keeps on trying to say, well, because you're looking for this job. I'm like, dude, no, I'm not looking for the job anymore. And I keep forgetting to clear that memory out. So it is an ongoing thing. Pruning up your memory is something that you can do continuously. 3, summarize and restart. So when that context window gets full, we talked, when your desk is full, it's starting to not remember the middle and things are falling off. Ask it to summarize the conversation, use that summary, and start a new session that clears the desk, and then you get a fresh, clean context window. Number 4, and we talked about this in the previous video, keep topic separation. Don't mix projects within, like you're not going to put your project plans with a recipe in one chat session, right? That desk is just going to get cluttered and totally confusing. So keep your chat sessions within a specific topic. And number 5, be explicit. Tell the AI what to save. Remember my preferences. Don't be passive, like dictate the post-it notes. Remember that I don't like it when you're a sycophant. There's actually ways to make it a personalization that have nothing to do with memory, but we'll cover those later. Or if you're just curious, just start playing around in the settings and you'll see them. And then number 6, this is important, your periodic maintenance. Like once a month, just make it a habit where you're going to clean up your memory, maybe introduce something new, just have it so that it's going to work more effectively for you. That's it. Mastering the machine. Your data is the blueprint. Your attention is a filter. So control the memory or it controls the narrative. Just remember, in the age of AI, privacy isn't a setting. It's a continuous practice. And it is up to you to build the most effective AI. And now you know those 3 things: context windows, persistent memory, and that file cabinet. And hopefully this clears up a lot for you. Thanks for following along. Please follow my Substack where I write the articles, have links to more information, some useful tips. And if you like this, would love it if you shared. I just do this as for fun to learn more about AI myself, and figured I'd bring you along so we can learn together. Thanks again. Bonus content. Something I really quickly wanted to share is since I keep on just talking about things, I kind of want to show you cool things you can do. This is the article I created April 1st about memory and my friend Darren and the desk and post-it and filing cabinet. And this was just a Substack article. I don't want to follow a script. It just doesn't feel natural. But trying to go from memory or looking at this document, it's a little much, and sometimes I have to stop and read and then talk, and it's just not great. So I wanted to create some presentations that I could also eventually use when I do some trainings, etc. So what I did, I first went into Google Gemini, and Google has the Gemini included in the Google Slides. If you have the Google Pro or Gemini Pro account, $20 a month. And at first I thought, well, maybe I can just import the article and just say, create a presentation. But it doesn't do that. It will only do one slide at a time, which was not problematic. What I ended up doing, because it was already in sequential order and exactly how I want it, I would just copy the part of the article and I would paste it into my prompt. And I would say, create a slide using my brand for this section of content. And it was pretty darn good. Mind you, in the background, I have fed it my brand identity, and it's nothing more than just like my fonts, my colors, and it created these slides. Really used AI for Gen X type imagery, and it did a great job with very little editing, which this would have taken me maybe a few days to create yesteryear, but now it was maybe half an hour. Again, it was just copying sections of each part of the article and then prompting it, and it created all of these slides. Then what I also did, I wanted to show you, you can create a video from it through Google. Just literally just go create video. It wasn't that great. It adds this weird music that I didn't love, which you can change, but it wasn't perfect. But what I did do is I went to Notebook LM, and I've talked to you about Notebook LM. It's what I use to create the podcast when we're talking about the data centers. Super easy, free tool. Like, this tool needs to be used more, and I don't think that people understand all of its capabilities. It has the ability to do infographics, and the multimodal aspect of what Google can do is fantastic. So I asked it to create a video from the Google Slides, and it did a great job. I will include that video at the end of this. It took maybe 5-10 minutes to just work in the background. It's a very creative video, and I'm sure I could have prompted it. I probably wouldn't have chosen like this line draw design. It's a little creepy in my, and I wasn't trying to go so scared of privacy mode, but it did a great job. So take a look at it and let me know what you think. And I encourage you to use AI in fun new ways too.
You've been there. You're working on a project with an AI. You've fed it the brief, the tone, the background, and then 3 pages in, it completely forgets what you're doing. Or worse, it confidently brings up personal facts about you that are 2 years out of date. This happens because we talk to AI like it's a person, but it doesn't have a human brain. It operates through strictly segregated mechanical storage systems. Modern AI memory architecture is built on 3 distinct tiers: the short-term context window, which acts like a desk, persistent background traits, acting like sticky notes on a monitor, and deep chat history recall, which functions like a filing cabinet. Treating these complex databases like an omniscient magic 8-ball guarantees sloppy outputs, wasted hours, and, if you aren't paying attention, serious privacy leaks. We all want an AI that magically anticipates our needs without repetitive prompting, but we also need to keep proprietary client data or personal habits out of public training models. Evaluating an AI platform now requires identifying your specific location on a spectrum of compromise between convenience and privacy. High-convenience platforms achieve seamless memory by using your daily interactions as fuel to build and refine your personal profile. Conversely, highly private systems protect your data by forgetting it, which forces you to manually rebuild the context for every new session. To get a real return on a pro subscription, you have to choose the memory architecture that aligns with the sensitivity of your data. This desk is your context window, the AI's short-term working space. Starting a new chat wipes this desk clean. Capacities vary wildly between Pro accounts, ranging from Claude's 200,000 tokens to Gemini's 1 million token limit. A large desk doesn't guarantee accuracy. This curve illustrates context rot. Overloading the window causes performance to sputter. The AI prioritizes the beginning and the most recent prompt, completely ignoring critical information buried in the void of the middle text. Users often mistake a usage limit for a memory failure. A try again later message is just the system's office hours ending. Keep the trained context window if the clock pauses you, but stop once the desk becomes completely cluttered. High-accuracy users avoid infinite chat threads. When a session gets long, ask the AI for a summary of key points, then start a fresh chat and paste that summary as your new briefing. The second layer of memory is the post-it notes. These allow the AI to retain facts about you, like your job or tone preferences, across different chat sessions. The AI literally reads these notes before the desk gets cluttered. ChatGPT acts as the eager assistant, building a profile you must manually prune. Claude acts as a transparent editor, forgetful by design to maximize privacy. Gemini is the ecosystem powerhouse, utilizing its wide surface area to maximize user data collection. This persistent record is a double-edged sword. If you don't manually prune outdated facts, the AI begins every session reading its own notes about you, increasing the likelihood it will fabricate details as it tries to reconcile your past history with your current request. The actual cost of these memory features is your data security. How much privacy are you trading for this convenience? This report card shows a clear divide. Claude earns a 4.5 by defaulting to privacy and acting as a safe room. Gemini's score is a warning. Treat it like a public park, because human reviewers may read your stored data. There is one way to get deep memory without privacy sacrifice: the company wall. With a standard personal account, your data fuels the next model by default, unless you manually flip the opt-out switch in your settings. Unless you are protected by an enterprise-tier private vault, you must assume every persistent memory you grant the AI is actively training its public successor. Technical understanding is only useful if it changes your strategy. You need to match your specific professional needs to the correct memory architecture. If you are an IP protector, working as a lawyer or a strategist, use Claude. The friction of re-uploading context for each session is a necessary tax for ironclad privacy. Ecosystem optimizers should route massive, non-sensitive archive analysis to Gemini, taking full advantage of the 1 million token desk. Everyday users will find ChatGPT the strongest general assistant, provided they commit to the active management of their personal profile data. Success with these tools requires ruthlessly matching a platform's specific memory architecture to the stakes of your current project. This grid is your operational protocol. Treat your AI identity like a credit report. Check it monthly to update facts and delete outdated data. Don't be passive. Explicitly tell the AI what to save, and keep project plans separate from recipes to prevent context contamination. Remember the golden rule. Clearing a chat thread only shreds the transcript. It does not delete the persistent memories or profiles the AI has built. Your data is the blueprint, but your attention is the filter. If you don't control the memory, the machine controls the narrative. In the modern AI landscape, privacy isn't a static settings toggle. It is the continuous practice of controlling exactly what the machine is allowed to remember.